Books and Beyond. My name is Jimmy Bennett, and I'm your host. We've been away for a little while, obviously, in the middle of this COVID crisis. Um, but we've come up with this solution, Frank at the SEC TV did, that we're going to try the old Zoom conference call and record. And I'm loving it. I'm here with my guest, Greg Gilmartin. We'll get to him in just a minute. I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. Well, one, I hope you're all safe and healthy. I hope you stay that way. We've been very, very fortunate in Eastern Connecticut here, and let's hope it stays that way. Um, I'd like to also say, I'm co-chairman of the local Southeastern Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. We've had to cancel our meetings, obviously, to keep our social distancing, but this month, on April 20th, we are going to try a virtual meeting using Zoom or some other platform. Patty will be sending out emails to the members, and I hope you'll all join us for that, or as many as you can. It was great to stay in touch. So I miss you all very, very much, and I miss the inspiration and the advice I get from the group. I myself am an author. I've written 3 books, all based on William Gillette of Gillette's Castle. My first book, The Case of the Flying Corpse, right there. I also have accounts of William Gillette. And my third book, The Case of the Floating Corpse. So now you have time to read and stuff. I hope that you'll check out us local authors. Give us a shot. My books are available on Amazon, or if you really want to stay local, you could probably order it through Bank Square Books or Savoy in Wesley. But now let's get to Greg Gilmartin. I've been waiting to have this man on my show for quite a while now. It's a great guy, interesting, and he's got a great series for you.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody is safe. In fact, and keeping safe and smart, because as strong as our ideas might be, the pandemic is a real thing. And I think we just got to take it all seriously. But it's fun, if you will, in that you've got the time now to maybe read. And if I might, Jim, I've been able to do a few talks here and there, and I've come up with kind of a poem about my new novel, Spy Island. And if you will, it goes something like this. Spy Island, it's a hell of a tale to tell. Booze and bets, broken hearts, stolen secrets, old school spies, government lies, sailors at the oar drinking mudslides, a murder, a manhunt, submarine sabotage, the feds, the Reds, digital espionage. Patrika's in the cellar, Luke's on the lam, even the Southeastern Lighthouse is in on the scam. From Coney Island to Block Island, you can run, hide, spy, but make no mistake, they're coming for you, and someone has to die.
Oh,
How about
nice.
that?
Very
That's
nice.
fun. Hey, it's always fun when you're a writer to write stuff. I've been writing most of my career. Much of it has been for television and radio. But in the meantime, I've been able to get a couple of books out, and I love it. It's all good.
Now, you're a local guy, right?
I'm a local guy. Well, I was born in Brooklyn. I was born literally in the shadow of the parachute jump in Coney Island. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that had a lot to do with the core of this story, Spy Island. But I moved to Connecticut in '94, I guess. I actually had been here earlier because I worked it up in Hartford at WTIC Radio for several years with Bob Steele. You might remember that name from years back. That was in the late '80s. I worked with him and Arnold Dean, and we did sports and covered the Whalers. I worked for the Whalers for many years, and then I had an opportunity to go to Arizona. That didn't work out, and I came back. So I've been back here since about '95.
Okay.
Living in Waterford now.
All right, good.
Yeah.
And now your books have a lot of local flair in them.
Yeah, I think you're right about what you know. You're right about what you see, and then you're right about what you want to know. So this particular book, Spy Island, it's a local guy who really didn't anticipate that his desire to have fun by drinking and playing cards would turn into a bad scenario where he ends up being getting the attention of law enforcement and a whole bunch of international spies because he's been forced to steal a secret, and he steals the secret, and now he's running away because he realizes, "Oops, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Where do I go?" Well, he runs to Block Island to hide out. If you're going to hide somewhere, I guess that's a good
Yeah,
place
that's
to
not a
go.
bad place to hide, is it?
I'm a sailor, so I've been sailing to and from and around Block Island for 40 years, and I just love the place. So writing about it was easy, and it was obvious to make it the center, at least the location for all the events that take place. So it's not a travel guide, but it certainly will open up your eyes to some places at Block that you maybe haven't seen. But it's there, and getting to it, that's all part of the story, plus the fact that we bring in this international flavor to it with a lot of the intelligence agencies from around the world curious about the actual secret that he stole. Oh,
Right.
and then he runs into a Russian waitress who's waiting on tables at one of the local bars. So that all adds the local flavor.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Which is not unrealistic. Actually, in the summertime, there is a lot of Polish and Russian uh, college kids working their way through, through the summer.
Right?
That's pretty. And it's cool. I mean, I've always appreciated. It's nice to read about things you know and see. One of my joys, like about writing about Gillette's Castle. Almost everybody's been there at one time or another. In their life. Whether a school field trip, or they went up whatever. Though my books are set in the early 1900s, so I have to sort of imagine what it was like back then.
Yeah.
Uh,
And of course, nobody really, I mean, there's some stories about it, but you can make up a lot of stuff and make it work.
well, let's see. That's where I get a lot of license, because
Right.
nobody really knows what it was
Right.
really like. You find yourself having to really be accurate about what you describe,
I
or
feel
do you
like I
take?
want to be. I feel like I want to be. I mean, there's some technology involved in my book, which I'm very particular about, and that requires a lot of research, and I enjoy doing that. I have to say, I was in the Air Force, and they taught me how to speak Russian, and
Oh,
I was a Russian linguist for 3 years, stationed over in Turkey and Germany, and we would, during the Cold War. This was the late '60s, so we were very much in the middle of that whole technological growth of spying, if you will.
right,
Although my first my first connection with spying actually began when I was young. You might remember when you played in Little League, and when I played in Little League, my coach would yell out, "Greg, Greg, here comes Greg," and we knew that meant a fastball, as
right.
opposed to Gilmartin, Gilmartin, I meant a curveball. So we were cheating back then, or spying back
Yep.
when we were kids. So the Air Force made it more sophisticated. So we listened to the Russians flying around in their airplanes in East Germany and on the Crimean Peninsula and so on. So that has always got me intrigued about the other countries and the geopolitical situations, and what are we doing to try and learn about them.
Right.
And, so that just became a natural way to carry out a main story.
Yep.
And
Now, in your characters in your book, I haven't read your books yet, to be honest with you, but I never do until I have somebody on my show first,
I
because I
can start
want them.
reading right now if you like. No.
All right, yeah. Flip through it slowly.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you write characters into your books, do you sort of base them on local people, friends, people you know?
I probably steal names more than anything else. Some of it is local, but when it comes down to the character themselves, you make that up, what you imagine the person might be like.
Right.
There might be a mannerism. Um, this one of the characters. It's funny. A good friend of mine, and I were having lunch. He said, "Hey, I want to be in your book." I said, "Oh, okay. So who are you going to be?" And sometimes he can be cantankerous. So I said, "Oh, you're going to be the cantankerous guy. What does that mean?" "Well, you'll be the muscle for the mob, for the Russian mobster." So it's funny. If I could, one of the props in my book is, I don't know if you know what this is. I'll show you the
No.
whole thing here. You're familiar with the game hurling?
Yeah.
It's an Irish game. It's played with a slide tar, which is a baseball, and they use the paddle to whack it around. Pretty crazy game. I call it it's a lacrosse with a ping pong paddle that's 3 feet long. But but I gave my character this affectation. He carries one of these around with him all the time.
Ah, all right.
He's the muscle for the mob,
Okay.
he's named after a buddy of mine. So anytime I felt like I need to show some anger or a little bit being a cantankerous kind of guy, I could just pull out of that
Yep.
personal experience I've had. Others you just make it up as you go along. The names may look familiar. I must tell you, I steal the names of my past uncles. They were both policemen in New York City. They're both in the book. I use that extensively. And there's a couple of other characters that have been repeated from my first novel, which was Crew, which I liked their attitude and the way they played the game. And they get thrown in kind of key situations. They're not main characters, but they show up at
Right.
various times.
Yeah, I do. I use a lot of people's friends' names and stuff like that. It's easier for me to visualize my characters in my head.
Yep,
Like some people say, it's almost like you're watching a movie in your head and you're writing it down. And
absolutely.
and so that helps me visualize the people, even though I give them some traits that aren't really theirs. I always tell them, I said, look, don't be mad, But most people
Right.
are thrilled. The guy who turned out to be the killer just loves it. He loves being the murderer. So it's funny to be not funny, but being so involved in television and radio and all the behind the scenes writing. What made you come out, to be an author?
I got laid off from a job and I had an awful lot of time on my hands.
Yep.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, when I first started, I was in Armed Forces Radio and I was the disc jockey and I read the sports scores. So as a disc jockey, you're ad libbing all the time, and your best talent is back timing records for the
Right.
introductions. But after a while, when you began to say, okay, you got to do a commercial for this company, or you have to do a promo, you had to write the words down. So now you're writing in 30-second segments, 8 lines or 16 lines, depending on how long it's going to be. And then, of course, being involved in television is all a very visual medium. So the visuals come first before the words. And, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but you need about 300 to explain the picture.
Right.
So that's where I started writing. And then when I had all this time, I had an idea. And, my first book, which I happen to have a copy right here, called Crew. And this is basically about a sailboat crew. So I'm a sailor. I've been involved with sailboat crews for 40 years. I know what it's like when you try and put a group of people together. I've been a baseball coach and stuff. So I like the idea of the interplay between people. And I said, hey, let's do a story about what happens if these guys suddenly get taken out of their nice, easy lives and are forced into a life and death situation. And they have to respond as a crew, as a team. So each
Right.
one brings something to the table. And because it's different, that makes it kind of interesting and it makes it go down different trails. And then you have it coming together when one helps support the other or they don't sometimes. And that
Right.
creates the controversy. And then you got to throw a woman in there or another man or something. And there's a love interest of sorts and
Right.
makes it a story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I'm looking forward to reading that.
Good.
What do you sail? What kind of boat do you have?
I used to have a J-29, great boat, designed right here by Rod Johnstone in the Stonington area.
Oh wow.
And the J boats, of course, are internationally famous. They've done very, very well. But right now, I'm more of a race management guy in that I don't sail as much as I manage and run the races.
Oh, okay.
So the boat that I'm on is usually the race committee boat, and we like it to have a nice big motorboat somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
40-odd footer, maybe longer.
Yeah.
We have air conditioning, and we're not afraid to use it. That kind of thing. So
Do you
that's
get
where
out to
you're
Block
really
Island a
the
lot?
best from. Pardon me?
Do you get out to Block Island a lot in the summer?
Well, every summer we have a big event that goes on in June, and Block Island Race Week also occurs. So that's you spend 5-7 days out there. I've done that many times, so that's an important part. And there's always a race or two that goes around Block Island, so you don't stop, but you have to get yourself in close and you play with the various currents and the wind shifts and it becomes a very challenging place to sail, which is good because as a sailboater, you'd like to go in a straight line to the final destination. The real tactics come in when you can see a nuance. The current's going to be different if we go a half a mile this way, and it'll help us. Or we want to stay away from the current that's going to be against us. So
Right.
go this way, and that makes it a very challenging intellectual game. So that continues. And as a manager of running the race, you're dealing with a crew of individuals who are helping you run the race. Plus, you're laying out the course and where are they going to go, and you're trying to deal with Mother Nature, who
Nice.
occasionally is fickle, as we know. And it's interesting. I mean, if I could just jump right in, the transition here. Mother Nature being fickle, we're dealing with Mother Nature right now with the pandemic. So, for example, the entire sailing season, the first part has been canceled. Our event in June for Off Soundings Club, of which I'm the race committee chairman, we're not going to have it. 600 people going over to Block Island for a weekend, that's just not going to happen. So we have a big party, usually under a tent, and 2 days of sailboat racing. But that's been canceled because of our current situation.
And that's in June.
And that's in June, right?
Right.
We felt looking at the projections that by the time June got around, nobody would really be sure. Do we want to put 600 people back together again?
Right.
And have that event? You just don't know what's going to happen.
I think that's the inherent danger too with this. I mean, I want to tell people. I want to make sure people understand that even though we're in a low incident area, and that so far we've been extremely lucky, that can change overnight. That can change in an instant. And we need to stay vigilant, and we need to practice our social distancing and stuff. It's been a challenge, you know what I mean, for everybody. I you know I just hope that people really do take it. I think people are taking it serious, and I think that's why we're doing so well. And I hope that it continues.
Yeah, well, as we record this now, we're certainly not out of the woods, and the graph is still going upward.
Right.
It hasn't evened out, at least around here on the East Coast. And the hope is that it will, of course. And I think people are taking it seriously, but I'm hearing stories of other places where they're not. And
Right.
maybe it hasn't reached them yet. Who knows? But at least from my experience, and I'm an older guy, a lot of experience, but that makes me susceptible. So I'm paying attention. I'm staying inside.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
I'm getting more writing done on my third book now, so that's.
Yeah, I was going to say now. So, what are your plans? You've been doing a lot of writing. I think maybe most of us writers have been. I hope.
This is the time. If you can't do it now,
Yeah, that'll probably be the outcome. In 9 months, there'll be a bunch of books and a bunch of babies.
maybe. I am working on my third novel. I'm working with the title now. You Can't Sail in Jail.
Oh.
And it's a combination of a story that involves the history of the Mystic River Mudheads, which is a sailing organization. You're familiar with, I'm sure.
I'm very familiar with the Mudheads.
Right. And they've been around for 40 plus years. Sailboat racers, very intense partiers, and a lot of stories have come out of that history.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that myself. I probably heard a few of them, but I imagine there's a lot of great stories coming out of those guys.
But I'm throwing a complete twist into it to make it real weird. In that I've thrown two guys two immigrants who have come over here from Albania who want to reach the American dream. And in the process of trying to do that, totally separate from the Mudheads, they end up having difficulty dealing with a level of racism and just bad vibes from people who don't want to accept them into the community.
Ah, all right.
And that makes them a little bit upset and angry. And one day they get an idea that would disrupt this area dramatically. Now, purely on the verge of black comedy, the Mudhead path is being set based around an event that actually occurred, and that timing meets up with our two terrorists in their plan to disrupt this area.
I
And
like that.
the Mudheads end up saving the world in some ways, or at least saving this area. Oh, I don't want to give it away, but
No, don't.
oh,
Yeah, but that's great. I'm looking forward to that.
so there's a
Looking
mix
forward
of
to that.
comedy and seriousness. We talk
Yeah.
about real issues and we talk about some fun things.
Yep.
So,
And where can we find your books, Greg?
well, fortunately, they're available on Amazon. Barnes and Noble. Also locally at Bank Square. Those folks, Annie's been terrific down there. Also at Savoy in Mystic, and I made a point with this second novel that I've gone to virtually every bookstore from around the 495 area, Portland, Maine, down through Connecticut to Stamford, and went eyeball to eyeball with each of the owners or whoever's running the store, and made my book available to them because I felt, while it may be available on Amazon, I'd like to have it in the bookstore itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of that process of, okay, writing the book was almost the easy part. The selling becomes the hard part.
Yes.
And you have to get out there and continually remind people, this is the time to read, find my book. Well, who are you? What's
Right.
your book?
Right.
So,
Yeah, it is a big challenge. I'm the same way. I mean, I have my books on Amazon and stuff, but I love doing shows
yeah.
and having people. We both just did the Guard Theater, right?
Pardon?
Did you do the Guard Theater?
Yeah, we did the Guard.
Yeah, I did the Guard too. One other night.
Rose Young was there with her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you and
Yeah.
Rose were together, right?
Yeah, and that
I
was
did
fun.
one with Larry Zaccaro.
Exposed
I
to a
love
lot of
being out in
people.
public like that.
It exposed you to a lot of people. One of the issues we're having, the pandemic had canceled the New London Books show,
Right.
which was just last week or so. Unfortunate, because a lot of people go to that, from what I understand. So you just got to get out there and put the time in to expose the book, expose the title. What's the first thing they teach you in school? Never judge a book by its cover. What's the
Right.
first thing they tell you when you write a book? You got to have a good cover.
Right.
Okay. So get the cover right.
Yep.
Who cares what's on the inside?
It's going to be a challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
Ironic, isn't it? I mean, now people have time to read, and so many people have. I mean, I've actually given away a few books, have sold a few more books lately because people are like, now I got time to read. You know what I mean? You can't watch Netflix 24 hours a day, or so.
I've seen that myself. I was absolutely surprised. I hadn't checked in a while, and I saw, I'll be honest, almost 100% increase in starting March 3rd. I sold as many books from March 3rd to now as I had sold from the day it was published in November last year, up till before that. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, this spike from however they're buying it. Fortunately, that's why you have to be online. You got to be on Amazon. You got to be on Barnes and Noble. You got to have it available so that
Right.
if they type your name in the internet, it'll show up, and then you can get it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I don't want to sound like a Corona vulture, but it's. I mean, I'm happy that people are, what I mean, because this is the time, and this is what part of what my show has always been about, Greg, was helping people. I always say personify their aspirations.
right.
This is a time where you really, take up, wood carving, knitting, reading, all the things that you always wanted to do but didn't have time to do. This is the time to, you can really fill up your days and enrich yourself, so when this is over, maybe you'll have a new hobby or a new vocation or a new calling, and you know, just improve your life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I
And you got to take the bull by the horns, using that worn phrase. You can stay in bed all day.
Right,
You'll get tired of that as well,
right,
and you'd be better off getting tired of, and frustrated because you can't come up with an idea to finish a paragraph for a story you're doing. Which you
right.
can always come back to that, but at least you've started it, you've tried it, and you have the time. My problem, I sometimes feel like I've got ADD and that I squirrel. Oh, excuse me, and you go
Yeah.
off somewhere else. But I've slowly evolved over the last 3 weeks, realizing there's no place else to go.
Right.
Get lost in the story right now. Make the brain work and put the words down, and eventually you'll come up with a story
Yep.
and start the process all over.
To wrap up,
Okay. Well, I guess that's going to be about it for today. I tell you, I've kind of really enjoyed this after watching everybody do it on Good Morning America for the last month. It's kind of neat to see it. Thank you so much for being my first guest in this new format, Greg. There you go.
There we go. Spy on.
Greg Gilmartin, Spy Island. Well, my name is Jimmy Bennett. I'm your host. Thank you so much for giving us a look. We'll hope to have a few more shows going shortly. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy. Take care.